Hi, I'm Mary Kettl, and Mara Stilson has asked me to read some stories about my life at camp. Today I'm going to read a story called Saved by Horses, and I hope that it will remind you of all the time over the years that you've spent riding horses with us. Saved by Horses. There are days when my horse feels like a part of my pants. This is not to say that my pants make rumbling sounds and attract a lot of flies, although some days this is also true. What I mean is that there are days when riding Scout feels like I am just gliding over the ground. I hardly have to use my reins or my heels. I just have to think a direction, and she is already there. If you ask Scout, she would probably say that this kind of intuitive relationship comes from many years of open communication and goal setting, having a clear mission statement, and no, she wouldn't. If horses could roll their eyes, Scout would be the first one to make fun of me and my imaginary cowboy life. She herds Lutherans, I imagine her saying over lunch with her other horse friends, the kind, droopy-lipped geldings and stern, grandmotherly mares who staff our camp riding programs. We haven't gone near a cow in 5 years. Sometimes I pretend to be afraid of ducks just to see how long I can get her to hold on to the saddle horn. I watch these horses over the fence sometimes, swishing their tails and occasionally glancing back at me, and I can almost hear them snickering. Horses, I was surprised to learn, were originally hunted for food by ancient peoples in Asia. This was in the way olden days, before Chinese takeout was invented. It was only after several centuries of eating pony baloney that someone finally got the idea of climbing up on a horse and trying to ride him in a parade, an idea that worked less well with cattle and not at all with tuna fish sandwiches. Horses went on to help the Mongolians and the Romans conquer the world and to make movies like Ben-Hur and the Ten Commandments much more exciting than if the chariots had been pulled by, say, Cocker Spaniels. My own love affair with horses began when I was 4 or 5. Because I'm from Wyoming and because I'm a camp wrangler, people often assume I grew up on a ranch, which wasn't the case at all. My mother was a kindergarten teacher. We lived in town, and she was not interested in raising livestock any larger than a dachshund. Like many little kids, I made up for a lack of a real horse in my life by pretending to be one myself. This was troubling for my 2nd grade teacher, who did not know which reading group to place the whinnying, head-shaking Kettl girl in. When I explained to Mrs. Rouser that I was Pegasus, the winged horse of mythology, she nodded, and she asked if perhaps I could just flap my wings a little bit carefully while we were indoors. And then she put me in the reading group for weird children. My dream of working with horses came true at Outlaw and Atlantic Mountain ranches. And eventually, years later, I got my own horse. Scout was 3 years old then, and which in horse years means that she had the common sense and disposition of a middle schooler with a box of bottle rockets. Riding a young horse taught me many things, the most important lesson being that I would never do this again. For weeks we practiced things like going forward, while I held onto the horn with both hands and tried not to cry every time Scout backed into a fence. We were both hard-headed. She, because she was young and didn't know better, and I, because I had lost a grip on several things in my life that year, and I was determined that I wouldn't be beaten by a horse. It was not a good beginning, and it should have ended badly, but we were saved by grace in the form of a summer job leading trail rides at a Girl Scout camp in Wisconsin, and then later at Atlantic Mountain Ranch, and then at Outlaw Ranch in Custer. Exposed to kids, dogs, trucks, tractors, deer, large birds, and Lutherans who like to ring large bells, Scout seemed to shrug, and she forgot to be afraid. walking single file through the woods in winding lines of kids and other old horses, all of us singing boom de at the top of our lungs, she settled into a quiet, steady wrangle horse. My confidence grew over those summers, and I began to sort out other things in my life as well. My horse saved me. And horses continue to save us. If you've watched Jesse and me at Outlaw, you notice that we think about horses and we talk about them less as livestock than as co-workers. We know their bodies as well as we know our own. And we're a lot alike, and not just because we all like drinking out of the hose. Left unsupervised, we are all content to eat and nap away the day, but when someone bangs on the bucket or rings that bell, we go right to work. Jesse and I buckle the straps and open the gates, but the horses do the rest. They carry every kid with a solemn caution. They know every trail, and even when I make a mistake or take a wrong turn, my horse will lean in the right direction, sighing, grunting, circling back around till she finds a line in the grass that will lead us back to the corral, that will lead us back home. Scout, Cisco, Daisy, River, Laramie, Star. These are some of the longest one-on-one relationships that I've ever had. They get my jokes. They are patient with my shortcomings. And even with my slow, ungainly body, they allow me to be more graceful and elegant than I actually am. Working with horses gives me a way to be with people. Watching for their safety, I am gentler and kinder and more careful than I might normally be. I pay more attention to life. Every day, they save me.